Hey everybody, thank you so much for clicking on this video. So we have done this once before and we are doing again after high demand. I'm gonna fix your form. I recently asked my subscribers to submit a video of them doing an exercise that they would like some feedback on. So today we're gonna go through and we're gonna correct a lot of them. So we're gonna hop right in and start looking through these videos. I'm like 90% sure that I wore this shirt in the last video. Oh well. All right, we are starting off with shin. Sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. I hate when people do that to me too. When we're looking at a kettlebell snatch, what do you find most challenging about performing this exercise? What do I do with my other arm? Also not sure if I'm driving the hip enough either. Great questions. Let's look at the video. Good. Nice. All right. It's really, really strong in terms of a snatch. Let's just go step by step. So in terms of your setup, we actually want to start in a little bit more of a squattier hinge. So thinking about lifting the chest more and pulling the hips down, because if we think of the path of the bell, once we hike it under, it's going to want to go up. So if we are keeping our body in more of that horizontal hinge, the path of the bell is going to want to go out in front of us and then up. So we want to make sure that it's coming right up the body. I would say that something you can do is practice your hike. So have a little bit of a stronger hike and just like you said, a little bit stronger hip drive. Something that can help with your hike is honestly just practicing your single arm hike a few times underneath yourself. And then something that's going to help your hip drive is actually by using your other arm. So as your hips go back, you're going to throw your arm back to mimic what your hips are doing. Really think of it like a bend and snap. Otherwise, like your mechanics look gorgeous. I would just say snatches take a lot of practice. There's nothing worrisome about your form. These are just small technique things to kind of clean it up. So really, really good job. Next. All right. So we have Sarah next, and we're looking at a Romanian deadlift. I definitely feel this in my lower back. I know I have a lot of flexibility and mobility in my hamstrings, so I don't know why I can't get more depth. Plus, I really struggle with hinging at the hips. Let's take a look at the video. Right off the bat, really, really good job maintaining that back tension the entire time through your lats. This is a really hard thing for people to master. But I think there's a few things we can clean up to shift the focus out of the lower back and into the legs a little bit more. So as you set up, I want you to think of squeezing oranges underneath your armpits. This is going to help you with your posture at the top, making sure that we're fully upright and continuing to maintain that back tension. Next, then, if we actually look at your hinge, I want you to take a little bit more of a knee bend so you can get a more neutral shin angle. You'll see as you go back, your knee is actually tracking backwards, which is naturally going to place more tension up into the lower back. So if we take a little more of a knee bend, you're going to feel less pull on the hamstrings, less pull on that low back, and you're going to be able to load the glutes and the hamstrings a lot more efficiently. If we go down to the feet, you can see that your toes are actually pulling up as you shift back. I think some of that is simply because we are bringing the knee back a little bit too far, but if you take your shoes off, you're going to be able to really grip the floor, so I would definitely recommend doing that. And then at the top, just making sure we're standing fully up. There's a really big trend that I see with weightlifting where people will end their hinges like curled over. And it's honestly just a really big pet peeve of mine. Like we sit so much like this during the day. Like why are we going to train this way too? There's nothing wrong with coming all the way up with our chest at the top of our hinging pattern. So I would definitely recommend doing that. All right, moving it along, we have Alexandra. So she is performing the barbell back squat. We'll preface this by saying, I know you don't train or program barbell back squats, but it's an exercise I like to do because it makes me feel good. So any input you have on how I can improve them would be great. Amazing. This is such a great example of just because I don't like this exercise and I don't train it with my clients for my own personal reasons, does not mean that it's not the right exercise for you. Enjoyability is such a huge part of programming workouts because the thing you enjoy is something you're going to adhere to. A few things I've noticed when doing these. One, I sometimes feel like I'm leaning too far forward at the bottom of the range of motion. I think this might be an ankle mobility issue, but not sure. Two, sometimes I feel like instead of standing straight up, my hips come up first. Three, slight knee caving inwards, but I can't tell if it's within normal / acceptable range or if I'm caving in too much. 4, discomfort in my wrist occasionally from holding the barbell. Great, we're gonna look at all of those things. And then any other notes or questions? Do I have that butt wig thing I keep seeing online? Let's take a look. I would say right off the bat, your bar is set up a little high. I would bring it down 1 notch, just so when you come back, you don't have to go up on your tiptoes. Nice. I'm definitely noticing, like you said, hips are lifting and then everything else is lifting. We'll talk about that. It's subtle, but it's definitely there. In terms of leaning too far forward, I think you're good. you know, anytime that we have something loaded on our back, we have to counteract that. And you've got a high rack rather than a low rack for your barbell. I think it's the perfect amount of leaning forward. So I wouldn't stress about that. The other thing, your wrists, unfortunately, that's just something that you're gonna have to build strength with an exercise like this. It's actually, I talked about it in a video. I had this desire to get really good at barbell front squats and hated how it felt on my wrist, so I stopped doing them. Let's look at our knee cave. So we're coming down, knees are tracking over the third toe. There's a little knee cave as we come up. Nothing that I would be like, wow, that looks super dangerous, but it might irritate the knees over time. So I would say like maybe getting a little bit more cognizant of it as we're working through our exercise. So I know you're wearing Converse, which are flat shoes, which is fantastic, but even maybe taking the shoes off so you can grip the floor a little bit more. And before you come up, really just taking a pause and thinking of pressing the knees out slightly, like screwing your feet into the floor, using your hip external rotators, and then starting to come up. I think that's gonna help a lot with two things. Number one, the knees caving in, but number two, I think it's gonna help you extend the hips more so that it's not knees and then hips coming up. Right now, it's seeming like that knee tracking and the knees extending before the hips on the way up is due to us not really being able to tap into our glutes at the bottom. So just a slight external rotation, nothing crazy. We still want the knees tracking over the toes. I think might solve both of those issues. In terms of butt wink, I would say it's minimal. We have kind of a scale of risk, and a slight butt wink isn't the end of the world. I would say if it starts causing you pain, then it's definitely like something to be thought of. But a lot of times with a butt wink, it's either due to ankle or hip mobility. So just making sure that you're really taking your time to work through those things in your warm up is going to be key. But otherwise, I think like this looks fantastic. And again, you enjoy doing barbell back squat, so bravo. Okay, Gabriella. Gabriella's looking at a B stance RDL or a kickstand deadlift, as I call it. Same thing. Unsure about form and slight pain/discomfort on the lower back, usually on the opposite side of the working leg. Let's take a look. Yeah. Okay. Your hinge mechanics are actually quite good. I think it's your setup. So I would set your back leg in closer, because if you look at your right hip, it's actually externally rotated, or we're actually just twisted, right? You can also see in a few reps that the hips stop moving, but you continue to descend. This essentially shifts your hinge point from your hips to the low back. Always remember that once your hips no longer move, that's it. Range of motion is done, come on back up. Just to be clear, feeling your lower back in some way, shape, or form during a hinge position is normal. You have muscles back there, your erectors, which also help with keeping the spine upright. So anytime you're working through a hinge position, those guys are gonna fire. Now, it all comes down to how much, right? If we're doing a deadlift variation, we want the prime mover to be the glutes and the hamstrings. We might feel the low back working in there, but it comes down to what we primarily want to feel. So if you primarily feel the low back and not much glute or hamstring, that's when we know we need to adjust something. And we're gonna follow that up with our next one, which is another kickstand deadlift. This exercise is new to me and it just doesn't feel right, but I'm not sure if I'm doing it wrong or if I'm just not used to it. I'm still a bit new to strength training and not sure if I even get the basic moves down. Also, just wanted to say thank you for all the help you've been. You're welcome. Happy to help. Okay, good. So as we hinge over, knee is pulling back, and then it's pushing forward. So we already learned about this, right? We want to keep this knee directly over this ankle as we hinge the hips. So that's probably why it's not feeling great. We're probably feeling a lot of pull more on the low back and maybe even into the back of the knee, because we're really hyperextending there. Your hinge mechanics are not bad by any means. I would say though, especially since you said you're a little bit newer to strength training, I would go back to both feet next to each other and really just work on your simple kettlebell deadlift. And the main thing I want you to focus on is keeping that knee directly in line with the ankle and really just focusing on that hip hinge. Something I do really love that you have though is really good lat tension. So if you look through your back the entire time, you are not letting that armpit drip forward. You are not releasing that weight ahead of you. So really fantastic there. I think the biggest thing is really just thinking about that shin angle. All right, uno más. This is Anna. So Anna is looking at a Bulgarian split squat. This is a juicy one. I actually have a whole video about these already. My knees point toward each other and leads to pain. Any other notes or questions? Am I leaning too far forward? Let's take a look. All right, so I like our setup. We're setting up more train tracks than tightrope. Love that we're barefoot. I don't see a ton of knees caving in. Maybe as we're starting to fatigue. Yeah, there we go. All right, a few things here. So I say this all the time, but if you're having pain doing an exercise, either our form is off or there's an injury, and then you're gonna wanna go potentially see a physical therapist. With this one, it just honestly seems like as we're going through, our glute is fatiguing and we're having trouble maintaining any grip or external rotation from that hip. So I would say lowering the reps and or slowing down and just really becoming conscious of where our knee is tracking. A lot of times just slowing down is gonna help that. Otherwise, your setup looks really strong. In terms of leaning too far forward, it looks to me like you are reaching down, but it's hard to tell from this forward angle. But as we're going through a Bulgarian split squat, there's two different ways that we can do them. We can bias more of the quads and keep it more upright, or we can take a further step away, take more of a diagonal line with our torso and work more of the glutes, keep it more on that diagonal. Either way, what we don't want to do is be reaching forward or leaning that chest forward over the knee. With that, we're kind of compromising, so you can actually see if you watch your standing leg, we're actually not even getting that hip down in line with the knee. So we're not getting a ton of range of motion. We're getting a really big stretch on that back hip flexor and quad. I think slowing down, dropping the weight, and really just focusing on where your path should be is going to be super helpful. All right, we did it. I tried to be a lot more concise this time because I feel like when I have 30-plus-minute videos, a lot of people don't watch them, and apparently this was very helpful last time, and I want as many people to be helped as possible. So let me know if you want me to do this again. I know it's really, really scary to like submit a video of yourself to a perfect stranger and then have that perfect stranger critique it on the internet. So can we just like big ol' round of applause for everybody who submitted and participated. If you submitted and you did not make it into the video, I did shoot you an email already with some individualized notes and different exercises to perform to help improve the different exercises that you submitted to me. And yeah, let me know if you want me to do a third round of this. I would be more than happy to. I love connecting with you guys. I love helping as many of you as possible. That is the whole reason behind this channel, also just to entertain you a little bit along the way. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on the next third installment of this, and I will see you all in the next one.